Hello, beautiful light beams. Welcome back to the Brittany Renee experience. I am so grateful that you're here with us, sitting in this divine sacred circle today as I am introducing you guys, my tribe and my circle, to a very dear friend of mine, an incredible, incredible soul, Chrystopher Kyng. I'm going to let him introduce himself and share all of his magic and all of the good with you. So without further ado, Chrystopher, please tell us about you, what you do, what your mission is, all the things.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on here. It's an honor. I'm
Yes.
excited to be here.
Mm.
Um, Hello to everyone out there. My name is Chrystopher Kyng. I'm a Chyronic healer, which is very similar to a shaman or a shamanic practitioner. Um, Chyronic healers are astrologers, mediums, teachers, herbalists, plant medicine holders. So that's many of the things that I do. So I'm a medicine alchemist, obviously an energy healer, and I work in many different modalities. I'm a shamanic astrologer and creator of 5D astrology, which is a more evolved, ascended astrology. I'm also the creator of MycroDos, DOS, which is a line of 5 different microdose blends. And I also own StarDust Retreat Center, which I'm here now, which is outside of Atlanta, Georgia. So I operate and facilitate luxury retreats all over the country and soon to be all over the world, in Egypt and Peru. I offer cacao ceremonies, one-to-one sessions, ascension and awakening coaching. I teach courses and classes. So there's many different facets to what I do, but ultimately what we're doing is leading toward this fifth dimension and this raise in frequency, and we're healing. We're raising frequencies and we're raising set points, and that's really the goal. And for those of you who are not aware of what Chiron is, in astrology and mythology, Chiron is known as the wounded healer. And I embody that archetype. And I'm also helping to evolve that archetype out of the wounded healer into the rainbow bridge and just the healer or the shaman. Chiron is the shaman. So I spell Chiron Chyron. The rest of the world spells it Chiron, but that's the wounded healer, and we're updating. So, as an embodiment of Chiron, I also hold different medicines. I've worked with plants for most of my life. That's been a very strong calling. Um, and working in the realm of shamanism. And as many know, shamans are dancers, storytellers, singers. So I've been an actor my whole life. So it's all been leading toward this. And everything I do is to hold that rainbow bridge for people to get from this dimension to the next, from their human self to their higher self, from this timeline to the timeline they prefer. Whatever the case may be, I act as a gatekeeper, and it's an honor to do so.
So yummy, this multidimensional being in human form gracing us with his presence today. So we can go so many places. My whole womb space is just fired up about this conversation.
Hmm.
Okay, so where should we start? What is really present for you right now? Like you do all of these things, but where currently in your orbit is your energy? Like what are you focused on? What's really fueling you? What's coming up?
So, what's fueling me the most is rest right now. I'm really leaning into, after so many years of nervous system dysregulation and working full time. And for those of you who are human design aficionados, I am a 2/4 ego manifester. So working full time like that and consistently was not good for me. So I'm deconditioning out of all of that. So there's a lot of rest happening that didn't happen before. And but some of the projects that I'm really leaning into is I have my own podcast, Chronicles of Chiron, that is coming out soon. And also, I'm really focused on, of course, all the retreats that I offer, but there's a few retreat experiences that are somewhat new, and they're called Coven, Covyn, and they are invite only, and it's a gathering of people who've either been to retreats before of mine or who are very experienced, but usually you only get invited to this when you're part of this soul family. You've already been to some retreats, but Spirit is having me take groups of people to different sacred locations on the planet, like Mount Shasta in November. We went to
Mm.
Sedona in June. And It's about 10 to 12 people roughly, and there's a lot of grid work happening. There's a lot of planetary energy work that we do when we're there, and it's also just fucking magical.
Mm.
Spaceships and past lives and stuff coming out of our hands, which happens to me in every retreat. But for some people, they do need to get to one of these sacred spaces and unlock these codes within them and remember. There's a cellular memory that happens, so
Mm,
that's really where my focus is on a grander scale, is how to get people, light workers, shadow workers, grid workers, to these sacred spots on the planet. Because every time we go somewhere, whether it's a forest, a beach, a sacred land, and an old civilization or an ancient civilization that has been deserted for thousands of years, whatever the case may be, there may be energies there or imbalances, distortions to the natural energy flow.
mm,
And as grid workers and light workers, we can actually smooth out that icing and call in a new energy there and restore it to its natural templating back before the cataclysms and the patriarchy took over. And when, when we went through the process that we went through in the past 12,500 years, before that, this is all a time about reclamation of our healing powers, reclamation of our gifts, reclamation of our voice, reclamation of our life and our whole energy. Like,
mm.
I don't have to work. I didn't come here to work and slave away. It's also reclamation of the planet and the connection that we are meant to have with Mother Earth. So
Yes.
that's really where I'm focused right now on a larger scale.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I so I'm actually in Florida right now, and I am down here doing grid work because Spirit called me here. And I was like, why am I going there? Like, I'm focused on, my retreat that's in November too. I'm like, why am I going to Florida? And right away it was like, you have to go down there to recollect parts of you. You have to really do some alchemy in that grid. You got to kind of call power back, but there's also grid work that really needs to happen. So I would love to know, because I know we share a lot of similarities in this. What has been your favorite grid to do work on, and what did you really move when you were there?
Okay, so my favorite grid to work on is actually I loved Sedona, obviously, so excited to be with all these light workers in Mount Shasta. There's many places that we've heard about that would seem obvious, but about 10 minutes down the road from my retreat center here is an ancient civilization called the Etowah Indian Mounds, and these are pyramids that are built that have no top, so they are flat, so they're actually like a big mound, but they're flat at the top and they're built like a pyramid.
Oh,
And
cool.
the Native Americans or the Indians, the Creek Indians, the Etowah tribe, the Mississippian Indians is what they're called. All the tribes on the east of the Mississippi, in Florida, Alabama, mostly in Georgia, North Carolina, these tribes would build these mounds, and so there's several of them in Georgia. Etowah Indian Mounds, which is right down the road, and then there's the Okmulgee Indian Mounds in Macon, Georgia. And when you go to these places, there's a deep remembrance, a deep cellular memory that happens. I had a visceral reaction when I went to the Etowah Indian Mounds here for the first time. And it was a full on remembrance. I heard, "You've been here before." And it felt
Mm,
like I had come home, but my home was dilapidated and covered in grass and ivy. That's what it felt like.
mm-hmm,
And I've had several people go there who claim that they've seen them and myself there in a past life, and so I know there's some reason. I know there's some reason that I landed here in outside of Atlanta, Georgia, rather than California or
mm,
Australia. Why it was right here. And when I went there, I realized there's something bigger happening here. And this was just a droplet of water that comes from a huge ocean that I haven't even tapped into yet. And so when I was there was this feeling that I didn't need to do anything, but I just needed to be there. And they actually showed me that if I put my hands on certain trees or certain areas of the land, that because I can do that, I don't know yet, this is newer for me, where I can be in an area for an amount of time, whether it's a few weeks or a few months, or just touch something, and new flora and fauna will blossom in that area. It's
Love it.
magical, and I don't really know. I started noticing that after I moved here, and I would be out on my property, and places that I would be touching or meditating would start growing certain mushrooms, like a lion's mane mushroom that grew right out of the slit in my mama tree out here. And I told her, I
Mm,
said, "What do you need from me?" And 2 days later, this lion's mane mushroom starts growing out of the side of this tree, which isn't impossible, but I have never seen a lion's mane mushroom in real life like that ever before. And it got so big, I named it Leo. And it
I
was
love
beautiful. And I thought, that's very strange because this is also happening in other parts of the property. And then I realized I can do that, whatever that is. And so I'm going to let that play out over the rest of my life,
it.
and
Yeah.
we'll see where this goes. But the mound areas, like just areas like that don't get a lot of attention, they're just gawked at by tourists and people who are there to kind of waste their Sunday or their day sometimes. When I went there, it was a total visceral reaction, but it was a beautiful remembrance and a release. I had a lot of releasing happening. I'm sure those people thought I was nuts standing at the top of those mounds crying and sobbing. And I tried not to make such a big deal out of it, but I also just was like, fuck it, we're just going to do this,
Yes.
because I felt in my bones my white ancestors and my Native American ancestors, because there's really just as much. You can't tell, but there is
Hmm.
just as much clashing in my bones, fighting the wiping out of that civilization by Europeans and famine, but mostly disease. I felt all of that. And I also felt things that weren't on those plaques that described what happened there. There were things that
Mm,
were listed by whoever created or turned that into a historical site. They didn't have all the answers. And so it was very overwhelming for me. But I realized taking people to those and going to those um, sacred sites unlocks something as well.
mm, so good. I love that. It's interesting because I think that sometimes there's this belief around grid work, or what you and I do and what a lot of other people are doing now, that there has to be this huge ceremony, or there has to be this big, like, how you do it, like I even in my coaching group, I was talking about why I was down in Florida and like what I'm kind of doing around here. And they're like, well, how do you call back parts of yourself? Or like, what are you doing when you do grid work? And I'm like, sometimes I'm literally like sitting in a random spot in a city or on a beach, and I'm just crying, and I'm just like releasing and transmuting and alchemizing the energy, because we're the
That's right.
conduit to do that. And it makes the space, and it reactivates the codes that need to be rewired, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting because this sort of thing is newer for me. I've
Mm,
heard about grid work for years and years and years, but I can't be everything. Okay. And I heard about Kundalini for years and years and years, but when I went through Kundalini awakening, I wasn't prepared just because I had heard about it before.
are we ever?
No. And I
Oh.
also didn't know that's what was happening to me for sure. So I I'm only able to have this conversation with you because of the last year of being
Mm,
here and really being given this word by spirit, grid worker, and being called to Sedona. They told me, you're going to take Sedona, or take people to Sedona, and there's energy that's going to go down into these vortices. And they were showing me all this stuff. That kind of thing doesn't wouldn't have gotten me off. That's not something I would have sought out necessarily, because I'm like, what are we doing here? Just like those people. What are we doing here? I'm not faith driven. I need my own experience of something
yes.
before I embody it or integrate it into my life. And I have full experience now of knowing what that means about gathering up energy in a part of the land and releasing it and transmuting it, because that's what we've come here to do in
Hmm.
this time. And also, there's something intentional about it as well. We all create our own reality, but not from a fictitious, ethereal place. Very quite rigidly and solidly, we create our own reality. So if your reality holds the timeline of some type of trauma happening in a certain land, you're also able to go there and recode the timeline or pull in a version of Earth where that area of the land or that impact. Think about all these different traumas that have happened on Earth in the past, especially 12,000 years,
Mm,
as different wounds that have occurred in the Earth's auric field and magnetic field. And they hold, the Earth is a giant crystal, and so it's holding that as in its data bank and its memory field. When you go there and pull in those other options, it restores the energy field, and you can actually, because we're the one creating it and perceiving of it, you can actually hold strongly an even grander vision there. And the best thing to do would be to move on to these lands and treat it with respect and hold space, hold ceremony, or just live in peace. It doesn't have to be a shamanic spiritual path that you have to follow. It can be as simple as I'm getting out of this city,
hmm
3D, very much a 3D concept. I'm getting out of this city with these skyscrapers and I'm going out onto these sacred lands and I'm reclaiming it for myself and I'm treating it with respect, growing my own food and also having a connection with Mother Earth again. That's what needs to happen. And so there is something big happening here, and a lot of us are downloading this. It isn't just us. There's many
No.
people wanting to move out, but there's many people being called to work with the energy of a land, which is strange because where does it end? You know, at least in a house, you're like, okay, the ghost is in here, it's not out there, right?
Yes.
Humans have a very 3D, very rigid way we look at things, and we sometimes forget or don't know, don't remember yet how it
Right.
actually works.
Exactly. And you know, it's so this is not new to me. So this is something that when I started awakening, this was one of the first things actually for me that I started to really understand because I've always been a traveler, right? Like it's just been my thing. I love traveling. I love touching new places, experiences. And so when I started waking up and really tuning into my gifts, I started feeling even more deeply those moments. And I had those visions of like, oh, you've been here before, or this is why you're here. And it is random in the beginning to be like, why do I feel like I need to just go put my hands on this tree? Why do I need to put my hands on this? Right. And I resonate so deeply with that. And I just do it, right? Like it doesn't matter. I could be in a group of people and I'll be like, hold on a second, I have to go over here and be this. And the beautiful thing is that the more I think you tune into it, the more incredible and deep these experiences, working grids become. And then when we get to lead people, I just think it's so magical to bring people into that space. So everyone else gets to feel in that like circle, their magic and their gifts and see and feel the alchemy that we can create here. And it's so potent and so needed right now. So I am so excited that you are really entering that space of like, okay, yep, this is a part of the mission.
Yeah, it there are aspects like that that I don't really have any ego attachment to. It's not part of the identity. It wasn't something that I felt needed to happen. And Christopher needed to do something like this. I'm being called to it. This is a true calling. And I don't think that deeply about it. I'm just taking action on it and doing
Yep.
it, not questioning it.
Yep.
Also, not really taking it that seriously. I'm just going to
Yep.
get there and enjoy it and do it when I'm there. And I'm going to go home and release it and let the next call come rather than I need to save the planet. I don't feel some big responsibility. I'm just going with the natural flow of energy. It feels with grace and ease.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I know something meaningful is there because Christopher has a lot of big ideas, but when something's not his idea and it still keeps pulling me, I know that spirit is there's something on a soul calling like all the time. I get texts, but this really started about 9, 10 months ago heavily. I get texts or messages all the time, especially from clients who've already worked with me, but some who've never even met me. You just came into my dream and you were waving a feather over me or walking me through a portal. And I just want to say thank you. And I'm like, you're fucking welcome, because I don't know what I was doing. I don't remember it, but obviously something's happening. Something's happening. I'm doing work in the astral plane. This
Hmm.
is stuff that I don't even have a desire to take credit for. I know a part of me is involved in some way, or their consciousness is using my consciousness blueprint as a
Right.
healer archetype in their dream space. Still me. So, but I'm not going to take ownership or credit for it. This is what happens in your spiritual process is you're still able to watch Housewives and pass out on the couch and go do some type of really big spiritual work that
Yes.
doesn't drain you. I mean, sometimes I do wake up going, I think I'm a manifester because I just never wake up refreshed. But I'm also doing a lot of work in this time. So a lot of the work I do isn't even on purpose or part of the mission that I thought I had. Okay, so
Mm,
the mystery continues and the evolution keeps spiraling up. So I'm just allowing it to happen. And that's what I'm really leaning into right now is allowing the rest, allowing the work to show up when it needs to, instead of planning or forcing.
yes. Oh, so much goodness in this. So, I think that that's such a piece that I think needs to be heard, and obviously any of the listeners that are on this, you are not here by any coincidence or chance, right? You got called into this energy orbit for a very specific reason. And so I know there's medicine just being delivered. I know, I get similar messages as well. I've got clients, I have people that know me online or they follow me on TikTok and they're like, you were in my dream last night and you were opening up all these portal ways. And it was like Doctor Strange, all, like this alchemy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, amazing. I woke up exhausted. So that makes, that makes
And I do
sense.
too often. And I do wonder, is there something energetically that's happening when I come back, when I wake up in this dream? Did that dream require some of my astral energy in a way that is hard for me to
Mm.
acclimate? I have to have these thoughts often because this is part of my reality. It isn't just melatonin, okay? It isn't just serotonin. There's an aspect of, I was doing something really big last night. Does that
Mhm.
affect me when I wake in this life, Um, it might if I'm really participating in it because
Yeah, I
your
totally
astral
believe it
body
does.
records all of that as well. Just like when you wake up from a nightmare and you're almost panicking because you believed
Mhm.
it was real. It might as well have been really happening in that moment. So
Yeah.
these are things that we don't necessarily put on the business card yet, but it's part of what we do. It's just part of
Yes.
being open and letting spirit use us as a conduit. And when I say spirit, I mean our higher selves. I don't
Yes.
mean some cacophony of angels that have deemed us worthy. We
Right.
are choosing it. There is a part
Right.
of our ego that wants this. We do want this. We not only because we want to do something important here, but it just resonates.
Well, and it's mission. Like we are here on planet Earth right now, and there's so many people starting to wake up and tune in. And I mean, it's so exciting to me to receive and see people coming online more. And it's people even that like I wouldn't even expect to start coming online that all of a sudden, one of my really, really dear friends, she and I are very different in a lot of ways, but also very deeply just like soul connected sisters. And her process over the last couple years in my growth and evolution as the healer and the coach and all the things, it's been really really special to watch her walk her own path of expansion in her own way, in her own lane, not my way, like her way. And we had a conversation like a week ago and she's like just talking, just girl talking about what's happening. And she starts saying, oh yeah, well he was in my dream and then I woke up and then I had this coincidence happen or this was happening. Like she's using these spiritual or conscious kind of connections now. And she's talking about how she felt called to go to certain places. And it just makes my heart so full because I'm like, she is more connected now than she's ever been. And I'm seeing this in clients and strangers and people that are just connecting. Like I was at a kava bar the other night and this kava tender was like, kind of like attracted to my energetics. He just kind of kept coming over and like, how are you? What's going on? What are you in town for? And as we get into talking, I find out that he's like on a soul search right now. And he's like sober of like 6 months. He's trying to figure out what he's doing.
Of
And
course.
right. And he's like, what do you do? I was like, well, help people remember who they are as souls and then mesh that into their human experience. And he's like, huge eyes. He's like, what? Like, yeah, I'm, psychic intuitive, but I'm a coach. I was like, it's hard to put like a title on what I do because it's so multidimensional. So we get into bantering and talking and we add each other on socials. I'm like, yeah, follow me. You can kind of see what I do. And I got a message from him yesterday morning and he's like, I'm ready to find my purpose. And like everything in me was just like, I was going to go home when I went to this kava bar. I was like, oh, I'm tired. And something told me like, you have to go try this place. I'm like, it's like 9 o'clock. Y'all, for me, that's late. I like my bedtime. Human design, I'm a projector. I really enjoy my rest too.
Yeah.
So anyways, though I go, and then when I left, I was like, his energy was calling me there. He needed the medicine that I'm going to be able to bring to him. And
Yeah.
he's just in this new awakened space. So I get so like just heart giddy thinking about like so many more people waking up, so many more people tuning in, and makes me really happy.
It makes me really happy as well. And I kind of keep the pulse of what's happening in that regard, or check the pulse, I should say. And I do that obviously because I check in with the collective energy when I do energy updates and that sort of thing. But I also offer Ascension and Awakening coaching on my website. And so when I have these clients, I'm hearing so many of the same things going on. And the type of clients that I'm bringing in has changed as well. It's no longer people who are fresh and new. It's people who've been awakened for a while and are now ready to start their own business, or they are going through Kundalini
Yes.
awakening and they need someone who really understands the traumatic depth or in intensity and insanity that can come with that if that's how it's showing up for them. So my work is evolving, but still it's all about helping people get used to these new energies because it's more and more and more and more. The waves of volunteers are being activated. The
Yes.
um, the waves of light workers that are I can feel when the waves are happening, when we're in a purging phase, when we're in a holding phase or an activation phase, when we're in an awakening moment, and so it's more and more all the time. So it will become more commonplace, but for people like us, it's that is how he doesn't need to learn all of this information on Instagram. He needs to learn it directly from someone who's living it. So of
Right.
course spirit would, it was just like a magnet. You were within a radius of this being and it was just bound to happen. And that's when the juicy stuff happens, when it's divine and synchronistic in that way.
I love synchronicities. I always tell people, I'm like, there's never coincidence. That's not a thing. We've been programmed that, oh, just a coincidence. I'm like, or it's a mega synchronistic event
Mega,
you need to
yeah.
start paying attention to.
Mega, yes. Yes, and there's a lot of that happening right now. Synchronicities are shifting for people as well. It's no longer 11:11 on the clock. It's full-on manifestations that show up within days or conversations that are being had that are just impossible. How could we be having this conversation when I just learned that concept 2 days before, there are things that are operating outside of linear time as well. So for those watching, um, it's Friday the 13th today in
Yes.
October. It's our favorite day, and 13 is my favorite number. So there's a lot of changes to time. And it's interesting I'm talking about that because 13 comes up there, because our time is split into 12s, just like our zodiac. And 13 is actually that sacred number of creation.
Yes.
So as we move out of this Gregorian linear time, they're not directly connected, but the way we measure time and the way we perceive time itself is shifting and changing around us.
Mhm.
And so things like cause and effect, it used to be cause and effect. Now there will be an effect of something on a Tuesday, and on Friday, the cause will happen for me,
Yes.
where I would think this was the cause, but actually this was the cause. Just like a pain that I got in my right toe last year. And then I fell down the steps a few days later, and that was the toe that I landed on. Maybe that was a psychic vision on my body's part, but actually, I believe that I was falling down the steps in that moment. My body was feeling it because things are overlapping, and fifth dimensional frequencies and unity consciousness, that dimensional plane holds the energy of synchronicity. There isn't duality that causes things to lag or seem to not match up like they do here. So it all operates in synchronicity. When you need something, someone's walking down the street towards you with what you need because they were always going to be there. That's why you needed it. It is happening that way here, but there's layers and layers and layers of distortion, belief, disconnection, heart walls that are keeping us from that experience.
Quantum entanglement is one of my favorite things to jam out on and to riff on, because I think when you become aware of these facts, right, it becomes more apparent to you because you're open to it, right? You create the like, okay, yeah, I could see that. And then you start to really see it starting to play out. And what's been really interesting, I'd love to hear kind of where you're at on this. For me, is that part of what I do is timeline work, right? Is helping other clients see like, hey, this is where you're at in your timeline. These are the other timelines that are available. And how do we get you from where you are into the one you want to be, which I think is one of the things you brought up too.
Yes.
So,
and that's a big part of my work as well. So
yes.
I think we're on the same page there.
Yes. And so for then personally, right, for me, it's been really interesting because time has been just not a thing for me for the last couple years. And like, it's just, I'm like, clocks, what? Like, I don't even know what day it is half the time. I'm like, I'm just here existing in my space. However, I have noticed in my personal space that the timelines are moving so rapidly. And because I'm really intentional in the way that I'm moving right now in my business and my personal life and my relationships, all of my available timelines feel really good. They're juicy. I'm like, yes, like here for it, right? But I'm really watching the overlapping happening in these timelines at a degree and rate, which I've not noticed them before. And I'm feeling in my energy body the other players more and more than I've ever felt. And, you know, specifically speaking, I'm prepping for my event. I'm still navigating like a separation from a partner. I'm integrating new people in my business as assistants and co-hosts to my event. Like all of this stuff is happening, right? So there's all this surrender and all this growth that's simultaneously happening. And I'm noticing a very different feeling. So I'm like interested to know if you're also feeling this, because it's hard for me to put words on it, but it's like everything is right here more than ever. Even if physically that being isn't there, I'm like, oh, just the thought, I can feel the connection, I can feel the tap in, I can feel the energy of it so tangibly. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And I've been having similar experiences. And when you talked about the timelines moving faster, that's the timelines are not moving faster. You are. And it's not that your human is rushing, your frequency is higher, but really faster because it's cycle per second. It is spinning faster than it ever has. So the timelines in the way we perceive reality from where we are. So when I say that time is melting around us and it's not operating the same way anymore, there is a time acceleration that's happening. And this has been talked about by many different schools of thought and channeled teachings. That has nothing to do with time itself because time isn't real. Your perception of time is shifting. Things every year, it feels like things keep getting faster and faster and things get moving faster. And scientists would tell you it's because as we get older, we only have so much to compartmentalize in our brain. So it seems like things moved slower when we were younger. No, time is actually increasing on this planet. And we can feel it. Even people who aren't awakening can feel this perception of time. It's not time that's moving fast, it's your perception of it. It feels faster. It's you. It's you who is the feeler of it. So
Mm,
as that is a direct reflection of your growth and your vibrational set point moving to a new frequency range and operating differently. And that has absolutely happened for me as well. And I don't perceive of time very well either. Clocks and everything, they help me, but here in my retreat center, every clock is wrong. And I do that on purpose because when people are journeying, they want to walk around and look at what time it is, either to see for two reasons. One, I can I hope this is over soon, or two, I really hope this isn't over soon. It's
yes.
one of the two, okay? And so when I do that, it distorts their sense of time so they can just be in the now. They can just
Mm,
be in their experience without planning for it to be done or for hoping you can just surrender to it, whether you're surrendering to the joy or the pain of it. And that's very symbolic of what we're experiencing now as well, because there is only a now. We've heard this so much,
hmm
but when you feel it, that's when people say instant manifestation or create your own reality. The more close the now is, and the more embedded you are in there, if you are operating on a higher frequency, your perception of now is more malleable and you're able to withdraw more templates, more timelines,
mm,
more options into that now because it's not as crystallized as it was.
mm. So, so true. And I think that even this year, like I've heard more people this year say, like, how are we already in October? Like,
I
what?
feel the same way.
I'm like, this year's gone like this, like so quickly. And at the same time, I feel like I've been three different people this year. Like when I started halfway through and now coming into the end, I'm like, I have been a butterfly and a caterpillar and a butterfly. Like now I'm coming up as a phoenix. I don't know. It's like the transformation has been so radical. And so I am like super excited for this next year of time, this next increment, because it feels like go time for a lot of us, like exciting, soul, family, mission driven energy. And like even meeting you, like, so for y'all that don't follow Chrystopher, please find him. All of his links, all of his things are going to be down within the bottom of the podcast. But, I actually saw you on Instagram, I think. And then, of course, here's like the quantum entanglement. One of my best friends started talking about you on a phone call like the day or so after I saw you on Instagram. And I was like, wait a second, are you talking about Astro Medium? And she's like, yeah, do you know him? And I'm like, I mean, my soul knows him. My human doesn't know him yet. But the fact that you're bringing him up, of course you are, because I just saw his page the other day. And then we have all these other links and connections of people. And like the moment that I saw you, though, and we said on our first little podcast, which was on Brandon's podcast, I think, right? We all got to kind
Yes.
of be in this group. Um, I just felt like you feel like home. I'm like, I know you. Like my soul knows you. And it's such a special thing to feel that soul family, right? Like who you've never met in the human physical form, but you just know. And you're like,
Yeah.
I got you, you got me, we're good. Like we're here to support the mission and the elevation of the planet, and we're here to bring our medicine. And
Yes.
what I've really been channeling and downloading these last like 2 weeks, really, really big, is that be prepared to meet that soul family so much faster. Like it's just cycling in so quick. And I just like my whole body just gets like soft, but also excited thinking about it because I'm like, when you put soul family in a tribe, whether it's virtually or in person, like literal quantum magic happens. And so I'm just like,
Yes.
2024 is going to be the catalyst of just the dopest expansion yet, in my opinion.
I agree, and I feel that for myself as well. And a lot of I hold retreats so that people can heal and activate and step into their power. But I would say about 40% of the energetic reason I'm offering these retreats is to bring soul family together. all of these people know
Yep.
each other from other times and places. They know me. I have experiences all the time where someone will be in their journey or even not, even on their call before they even get here. And they'll say, I feel like I've known you from somewhere else, or that they'll even describe lives that we've lived with each other. There was a gentleman here this past weekend for a private retreat, and I felt something toward him that I was like, no, Lord, you're not supposed to feel that sort of thing. You're a facilitator. It was odd. I didn't really understand what was happening. Um, and he is very attractive and just a beautiful divine masculine man. There
Mm,
are reasons to feel that attraction or that resonance, I will tell you, but I was confused. I had the thought, I don't know where this is coming from. And then several times I had to tell him that he was a shaman because that was what was coming in, and that was part of the reason he was there. And it was very clear and evident. And I had a private conversation with him. And then later he got a download that we had been entangled in another life as two
mm,
males. And I was like, you would come back as a straight guy this time. Okay. So, of course. But that sort of thing was there. I felt it. It wasn't that it was just in his journey and I'm going to let him have it. Okay, he thinks that we've lived in a past life together. Just let him have it because he's in his little journey. I don't do that. I can really
mm,
feel into where it's coming from. And this is also not someone who has any interest in making something like that up. Um, Someone as of several years ago who didn't even believe in psychics and that sort of thing and is
mm,
getting psychic downloads. And it was really beautiful because I realized I'm just here running a business, I think, and like doing what I love because I love ceremony and medicine ceremonies and experiences, retreats. I really love that. So I just feel like I'm following my passion and my bliss. And sometimes it does feel like business, like they signed up, they're coming, let's do my thing. I don't realize when that I'm about to meet someone that I was involved with in another life. And this has happened from the very beginning when I started doing retreats, from the very beginning.
mm,
And I now know that part of the reason all this is happening is because I'm bringing these people together because now they're all soul family and entangling and sharing their gifts with each other and saying, you're not crazy because if you are, I am too.
mm.
There's this big support because all of these people coming together are very wounded.
Yes.
They have witch wounds. They have religious trauma. They aren't accepted by the people around them because they have certain abilities that everyone around them is not displaying. And so there's a very strong need for it as well. You'll find that the soul family, it comes in and there's just a resonance and it is real. We are going to
Mm,
bring our human 3D bullshit into it, but we're also there to trigger and heal each other too. It's a different frequency than a coworker. Sometimes you have coworkers that are soulmates, yes. But when you come into these spaces, it's intentional. People know this is soul family. And so they feel into it differently. It feels much more ancient and tribal and no heart walls, so much connection, people walking around the retreats. And not just retreats. This isn't just about medicine retreats. This is just about life in general. Touching each other. I love you. Is it okay to sit next to you? There's a different
mm.
way we deal with each other as soul family than the way you would deal with someone at the doctor's office or the supermarket or even your own family reunion where everyone's sitting around on their phones not paying attention to each other. It's not like that with your soul family, and there's many people out there looking and searching. You don't need to do that. Don't rush your lonely dark night of the soul. Get through that and let someone just walk in while you're working and change your life the way you did to that guy. Let
Yeah.
that magnetism happen.
So, I want to shift gears here a little bit because this is kind of bringing me into a different pivot in the conversation, which I know all of us love to talk about love, right? Relationships, all the things, because this is one of the pieces that everybody can resonate on in different aspects of their life. So, one of the things I will say to kind of pivot the conversation in soul, family, and energy is I think that more prevalent now than ever, probably, the actual energy of unconditional love is starting to really like spike within people. And I think one of the beautiful things about following your intuitive pulls when you are feeling called, right? So for me, it was like going to this random kava bar, and it's like this person's there that needed medicine from me, and beautiful. Our contract is like locked in.
Yeah.
But also, just allowing yourself to go into maybe spaces that maybe are a little uncomfortable is the word I'm going to use. Because I know like we're offering so much now, as in like retreats and coaching, and like really I love that we have so many practitioners all over. And I think people are searching and thirsty for the mentorship and the guidance in their evolution of their soul. But when you start this journey, you're going to start to attract different kinds of relationships. You're going to start to feel things like, I've done client sessions that I've had very similar energies where I'm like, why do I feel some kind of way? And then I get shown why that's there. But I think that the remembering of unconditional love and the remembering of we should be receiving in our relationships this tenderness and this softness and this like sacred witnessing of just who we are and where we are, And I think for a lot of people, it's really uncomfortable. I know for me, before I was really in my awakening, I loved physical touch with like my partners. I was really like, yeah, that's like my thing, right? That's a love language. But with friends or anything else, like it was just, I was programmed like that's not a thing. And now it's like I'll snuggle up to my friends and I'm like, let me just hold you, or, let me just lay with you. And, all of the unlearning that happens around like that's sexual, that's sensual, that's weird, all of that. I'm like, let's throw that out the door, because the ability to sit with someone who you're connected to at like soul level and just witness them or hold them or be witnessed or held by them is like such sacred medicine, in my opinion. So I'd love to kind of hear your take on like that part of the journey.
Yes, and it's interesting you would bring that up because I was on a podcast 2 days ago and I brought that up around like why do we not touch our friends or cuddle with them or get oxytocin from them? Be selfish, get your oxytocin. Like last night I was with two friends and there was a dog there too. And anytime there's animals, I make sure to touch them or stay by them because that's really good for me as I don't have any of my own. And so there was a lot of oxytocin going on there, but there was also an energy exchange because animals transmute energies with and for empaths without taking it on for themselves. So I'm there, but also my two friends are sitting separately and away from me. And at some point, I did go over and lay next to them, and our legs are touching and our bodies are touching, and we are fine with it. But we did have to be mindful, or I did have to initiate it and do it. And I probably did it because of the conversation I had just had on that podcast, where I was like, yeah, I do notice where we're staying separate from each other and keeping each other at arm's length. And when you come to retreats, yes, there are medicines that help you break down those heart walls so it can be easier, but um, it's such a beautiful healing experience. It is medicine. And I actually, instead of calling it medicine, I would call it nutrition. That's something you
Mm.
need. Okay. You don't need ayahuasca. You need blueberries and lettuce and nuts
Yes.
and seeds or food. There are medicines and there are foods, and foods can be medicine. Let food be thy medicine. But it's a basic need, and it's actually part of our makeup. And I believe that we're also releasing a lot of attachments, unhealthy attachments to things and people right now, and that is rendering us very vulnerable and fragile in certain ways and triggered, but also it is allowing us to love someone without them needing to be in their physical body, without them needing to be present in front of you, without them needing to say that they love you back. That's another
Mm.
one. Many people, when their partner says, I don't love you anymore, or cheats on them, they lose that love for that partner. They're no longer attracted. I don't want to look at you anymore. You might as well have never loved them. Did you ever love them? or was it just a contract? Was it just an
Mm,
agreement you made in some way? I will keep I will keep showing this love, which isn't fully real, if you keep showing that love, which isn't fully real.
mm,
And then let me get mad when it shows up as not fully real. We don't know that we're manifesting those things. So it's important, especially someone like me. I don't really operate in monogamous one-to-one partnerships. I just never have. Um, I've been single for about 96% of my life. Okay. Where most people have been single in their, by this point, around 20 to 10 to 20% of their life. And and I really just don't do that. I have Juno and Aquarius in my chart. I really feel strongly about dismantling marriage and the idea of monogamy and marriage. I do believe that they're old concepts, and that there's many people out here who are polyamorous, and they're polyamorous with, you're polyamorous with your friends. Why aren't you polyamorous with multiple partners? Oh, I could never do that. Because you would feel jealousy. And then when that
mm.
jealousy healed, you would be able to be in that situation. People don't want to push past these major triggers if they don't have to. Oh, we'll just keep it simple, just have one person. Well, I've always thought, well, we don't do that with friends. Why do we do that with lovers? I get that there could be this one person, but why aren't there others to fulfill other needs? And why is it lover and friend? Where's the in between? And I've thought about all of this, and this is part of our heart opening. The fifth dimension resonates with the heart. It's unity consciousness. And the more you open your heart, the less you're activating in the sacral area, the less someone putting their hand on your neck activates you sexually, and more
Mm,
sensually on an entire holistic level. That's what we're moving into now. But we're also specifically cut off from that. Separate the men and the women.
yep.
Put the women in specific types of clothing, make them very ashamed of their bodies, make them
Mm,
ashamed of their cycle, make them ashamed of everything that they are. And this will keep heart walls up and people from connecting into each other. And if they stay disconnected from each other, then we have a bunch of light bulbs floating around in space colliding with each other, rather than a big strand of lights that are all connected and on the same grid acting as one light source. That's what we're moving into. And so we're seeing the traffic jam that's happening as we're releasing old programs and pulling in new energies and fumbling around through that whole process as humans do.
mm. There's like so many things that I feel like you just hit so many points. You know, and it's interesting, the polyamory piece. I'm glad that like you brought that up and in the way that you did, because I've actually encountered quite a few masculines in the last month, really, that are kind of navigating like, how do I feel about that, And I went to this event that was just a bunch of entrepreneurs, a bunch of leaders. It was an incredible space. And I met this guy, which was like, obviously, again, no coincidence, right? We were in this massive theater in Salt Lake City, Utah. I set my stuff down next to these people I had networked with. And I was like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll be back. And I came back, and this super handsome guy, tall, dark, and handsome, just sitting in the seat next to me. And I'm like, awesome. Hey, I'm Brittany. Nice to meet you. We just start chatting. And we end up having such an intimate weekend of deep conversation around like, what are you doing? Like, why are you here? And I came there solo. He came there solo. He's working on his masculinity. He's working on becoming like a man that he's proud of, like he can defend his family, his partner. He's really into like his self-care right now and just figuring out his space. And it was so healing for me, especially in my space of separation right now. It was so healing to witness what I would, old me, I would say, would judge as like, oh, he's just like a jockey, tall, dark, handsome, probably ego driven person. He was so vulnerable. He was so just like in the present moment with me. And it didn't have to be sensual. It was just like, we're connecting. We're getting so like, we literally sat down at dinner and just talked about like our prior relationships and what worked and what didn't and what we really want and who our like authentic selves want to be in these unions. And it's these moments where you just allow yourself to kind of be witnessed. I think that there's so much magic in that space. And he was bringing up, he goes, I've been really trying to figure out, like, do I actually want to be monogamous, or like I have really good friends? Why is that different than like my partner or my lover? And I'm like, this for me was something I explored a long time ago. It feels like now. I was like 19 to 24. I had polyamorous relationships. I was in open relationships. I did the whole thing. I was like, what is this? And for me, I just, in my human experience as of recent, have really wanted the counterpart energy of that monogamous feeling, right? And of course, I've orbited in lots of not of that. And then I've orbited in the polar, like super extreme, like controlling aspect, right? And so now I'm in that same space. And I think that this is something energetically that a lot of people are kind of like, what the fuck is partnership? Like, what does that exactly mean? And like, where are the boundaries and where are the lines? And so I'm so glad this is getting brought up, because I know listeners are probably like, yes, this is what we need to talk about.
Yeah, and for someone like myself, I am not the one to talk to if you all are wanting support for monogamous relationships. Okay, not at all. Do I think that they shouldn't exist? I think there's a reason for that, and I think that that should show up naturally. I think that we would have relationships are changing on many levels, but definitely with our one-to-one partnerships, or that relationship is shifting. And it's just like, I am vegan, but people will say to me, oh, don't get mad at me, I ate mostly vegan. And I was like, but that's good that you did that.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you for doing that. If it was 10% standard American diet and 90% vegan, that's better than it was. It was 60-40. That is still better. That doesn't, you don't have to be 100% to be creating a change, So
Right.
there's a lot of gray area that we're starting to swim in our process right now.
Mm-hmm.
And Juno in astrology is the asteroid of marriage, long-term partnerships, and relationships. So when I look at someone's chart, I immediately look at, of course, their sun sign and their rising sign. Who is this person trying to be? What's the persona? How's that going to fit in with this other person? But I really look at their Venus signs and their Juno signs. What are their value systems, Venus? And what's important to them in a long-term partnership and relationship? How do they show up to agreements and contracts? That's Juno. Well, I have Venus in Leo and Juno in Aquarius, exactly opposite of each other. Not exact, like 6 degrees off, but they are opposing each other in my chart, which means the way that I show love and receive love and my value systems are in opposition to what I want in a long-term partnership and relationship. That definitely creates, I'm going to say, challenges for me in that regard, because my Venus sign, I show love in such a dramatic way, in such a big way. It's so warm, and I do that with everyone, and I want to be that way. It is real. I also value big connections and flashy things. There's a lot about my Venus sign that goes beyond just relationships with another person. But with my Juno, I very much want freedom and space and individuality, and for it to be non-conformative and unconventional. And the idea of marriage to a Juno and Aquarius person is funny. It's old, it's outdated, it's not needed anymore. And I do feel that way. If my partner at some point wanted to get married, I can't even imagine that happening. I can't
Mm.
even imagine being in a monogamous or long-term partnership, because the longest one I've ever had was 5.5 months off and on. And it was a karmic relationship that
Mm.
completely changed my life. It wasn't like it was just a relationship and I was committing to it. It was a very tumultuous karmic relationship that caused a spiritual awakening back in 2012.
Mm.
Okay, the year.
The year
So
we all woke up.
that was the last time I was in a relationship longer than 3 weeks. Okay. And there's only been about 3 or 4 in between there. I don't do it. I've been to lots of therapy and lots of journeys around it. I honestly don't believe that it fits in with my energetic makeup.
Mm.
Even me, as aligned as and as authentic as I try to be, there's still energies like that that I have to, when I read Juno in Aquarius for the first time, when I was getting into the asteroids years ago, I was like, whoa, maybe there's some. Juno was the reason I even believed in all the asteroids on a soul level because
Mm,
of Juno in Aquarius and what that represents and how spot on that was for me. Because I always worried that I'd be alone for the rest of my life. And now I look forward to it. If someone comes in and if there's multiple relationships and polyamories and polycules and if there's love happening and I feel satiated and my cup is full, I'm fine. Okay.
mhm.
That's what I'm putting out rather than it needs to come through this one person or it needs to come in this way. We're limiting ourselves. We're moving through limitation right now. So, what might
Yes.
seem like a life altering heartbreak for you is just a workout in getting you unattached from things. Because as humans, we do mistake love for attachment. We just
Mhm.
do. We think it goes hand in hand, and that's your Venus sign. Well, the more I'm attracted to it, and the more I want it, the more I love it, right? Well, are you talking about universal love? Love as in what God is and what goddess is? Or are you talking about attraction and attachment?
Mm,
They are different. When someone says, I love you, you love me because of the joy and the good feeling I bring to you. I might as well be a parrot. When we really get down to it, a lot of us are with each other because we distract ourselves from something we're going through.
right.
We make ourselves laugh. We like the way we feel when we're with that person. So it's still for us. There
Mm,
is a level of letting that true love come in. And that true love comes in when they say, if you love them, let them go. That's real. That's true. If they
oh,
want to go
it
and you
is.
love them and that's the path that's right for them, true love would see them on that path and would hold that vision for them rather than you've taken something away from me.
Right.
We're human. We're animals that have now hacked the system and understood how this whole thing works, but yet we still have a reptilian brain. We still have pheromones that when we breathe them in, we have a strong reaction to them. We're not going to not have that experience. So we're navigating this multidimensional plane as a three-dimensional being, or so we thought. And so
Mhm.
there are things in our society that are obviously updating as we're moving into the age of Aquarius. So any of your Aquarius placements will hold strongly that vision of the age of Aquarius. So obviously I have Saturn and Juno in Aquarius and my seventh house of relationships of all places. So I'm really here to address relationships and the karma within relationships and my own experience. But definitely, when people ask me about this, I love telling my friends to break up with somebody. It's one of my favorite things. Get rid of them. There's somebody else for you because usually spirit will show me. You're only holding, I ask clients this all the time, especially when they come through and spirit's like, let go of them and the person's not up to speed with that yet. They're like, I'm married to this person. I'm in love with them. When's the last time you had sex? When's the last time you said you loved them? Do you want to be with them for the rest of your life? Well, when you really get down to it, that's the one thing they were hoping I wasn't going to bring up or that spirit wasn't going to bring up, okay? Was that they were going to have to admit that they have to let go of this person because there's someone else for them. They don't want to have to go through this again. I say, if an angel of the Lord came down and said, there is someone else for you who's even better for you, would you stay with the current person you're with? 90% of them say no. And I said, that's your answer right there. Because
Mhm.
if I was your husband and someone asked you that and your answer was no, I'd be pissed. According to your all's monogamous traditional thing you all have agreed upon.
Right.
So I really am not I'm not being bitter because I don't have it, because anytime I've had it, it's been awful. And I don't mean like because they were awful. I can't sleep in the bed with someone. I like living by myself. There's certain aspects of a traditional relationship that will never flow with me, or at least not in this timeline. And I really encourage people. because you did not come here to find one person and suffer through it. You came here to meet yourself in as many different ways as possible. All of your partners have been God, just like you are. So you are intertangling with yourself. And I tell people all the time, you have multiple soulmates. You may not meet all of them, but in this lifetime, you've chosen to stay with this one. But if you let go of that, there are others that would be pulled in as well. People
Mm,
don't know how to wrap their mind around that. They think if I let go of this person, I have to go find someone because things don't just come to me. Nothing's looking out for me. That's really
mm,
what's at the core of that is I have to stay with this person because I don't know what's next. Because what if there's nothing next? You would not have a desire for that relationship if it wasn't coming.
right. I mean, I resonate with this so much. And I'm so intrigued, and it's come up so often for me to get more into my chart to understand, I think, that layer of me. I know, my Venus is Aries and it's in my fifth house. I don't know what that means. You're welcome to tell me.
I know what that means. So So your Venus sign is in the sign of Aries, and Venus traditionally rules Taurus and Libra. Juno, in my astrology, Juno rules Libra because Juno is relationships, marriage, and partnership, which is the seventh house. Before Juno was discovered, Venus fit Libra as best as we felt that it could. Just like Mercury ruling Gemini and Virgo, Mercury rules Gemini. Chiron rules Virgo, the healer. So we're updating as we're going, but Aries is opposite of Libra. So traditionally, Venus and Aries would have been considered in its detriment one of Venus's least performing placements. Okay. And it doesn't mean she doesn't perform. She definitely does in Aries. She definitely takes action on these things. But your Venus is in Aries in the house of Leo, the fifth house. My Venus is in Leo in the first house, the house of Aries. So we, there is, you could say our Venus signs are almost the same
Mm,
because one of them is wearing the Aries costume while being Leo, and the other one's being Leo or being Aries while wearing the Leo costume. When in astrology, the houses, it all mixed together, it mixes together to create an energy signature. So the energy signature of your Venus sign is very playful, very passionate, very dramatic. But I'm describing me too, because I have Venus in Leo, but you have Venus in the fifth house, which is the house of Leo. So your value systems really show up in play, fun, um, drama, even. Okay.
mhm.
Creating a little juicy drama. I like it too. But also, uh, children, the inner child work. These types of things are very important to you. And
Yes.
that's what's very of value and has a lot of worth for you. But Venus and Aries people in general tend to be selfish lovers, not selfish partners, but selfish lovers, if you will. Like, hey, I just gave you a big kiss on your forehead. Where's mine?
Give
Well, I
me
didn't
the
ask you for
love.
that big kiss. Yeah, but I gave it to you. Where's mine? It's very primal. It's very, and Venus and Aries also likes to look for a conflict, not to be toxic, but to reignite the passion. Like, I need you to fight for me. That can sound toxic to some, but for Venus and Aries, when it's aligned, especially in the fifth house, I need you to play this game with me. We have to be having sex. We have to be pulling and tugging. I have to want to know where you are, and want to get away from you a little bit. We have to have this fire that's always going. Okay, there's a passion there. Where, let's say your Juno is in Virgo. Well, that's an interesting combination. You love so big and volcanically, but in a long-term partnership, you really prefer security and groundedness. And just giving that as an example, how those things can come together in one person. So it gives me their love language and their commitment style, or what they
Mm,
want in the long term versus how they are when they're showing that love. So there's many factors there, but generally we want to have the attention and the not the power, but the it needs to kind of be about us. Venus in the first house, Venus in Aries, if you can make it about me, I'll make it about you. But it
Mm-hmm.
kind of has to happen that way first. I have to know that you would do that for me, that you would die for me, and then I might die for you. I might.
I love this.
I'll at least look like I'm going to. But also, I'm so important and I can't leave yet. So there's a little bit of that there. When you have Aries and first house energy, it's very simple, it's very primal. And there's a little bit of a cave woman energy that you have when it comes to the way you show love and receive love. There's a little bit of like, you'll kind of poke your partners when you're not getting what you want, and they need to be playful back. There needs to be an
Mm-hmm.
understanding. These things don't have to be toxic. You can also know when you're doing that Venus and Aries thing and catch yourself because
Yeah.
everyone thinks, oh, it's just a placement in my chart. No, it's a template that you're using to imbue your energy through, because so that you're not just everything, you're more a unique expression, but you also can express the higher octave or the lower octave of it.
Mm-hmm.
Choose. And then when you start choosing the higher octave, you can start choosing out of it altogether and start really just choosing what your soul wants. Astrology is very human and it shows up in many layers, but
Mm-hmm.
at the source of all of that is a soul blueprint that wants to come through, and that's the 13th sign in the 13th house. Once that comes through, then the other archetypes and the other placements we have are much more easily changeable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like some of that definitely hits for me, and other pieces I'm like, I do feel like I operated much more like that prior to awakening. And now I feel like I've come into quite the balance of, and I think a lot of this is because I'm a mother. I'm a mother of two kids, and it's shifted a lot of energetics. And I've, really come into, what do I want? At soul level, that's been my question to myself, is like, what do I want? And play and sensuality is huge for me. Like, necessary, like nutrition, like you were saying. I'm like, for me, that is nutrition. um and it's so interesting though, because I think we're finally in the era where people are starting to give themselves permission. This was the last podcast I had just done as well. We were talking about permission to be whoever the fuck you are. Like, what do you want? What do you need? I'm like pretty upfront with my partners at this point. I'm like, these are necessities for me. I need reciprocity. Like, I need to know that all the stuff I'm going to give you, I'm also going to get just as much in like receivership, because I need that. And my soul will just wither away if I don't get that. And so I think, that throat chakra, that voice activation on the planet collectively is really driving home right now. And also, I think that expansion in, who am I? What are relationships to me? What am I here for? And it's just so important to lean into that. So anyone who's listening and, who at any point of this has gotten chills, or kind of like your ears have perked up a little bit at certain things, I really invite you to find support, to find mentors, to find coaches, to find a tribe of sorts that can hold you in your expansion, because it's time to do that. Like, it's where we are as a planet. It's what, Chrystopher and I are sitting here talking about, because this is what we're so at soul level here to help accelerate, is the consciousness and unlocking all of the truth, while like unraveling all of the bullshit, all of the programs, all of the things that aren't, they were just embedded into our system. The reminder of the actual DNA that's within us, the memory systems that are within us, the quantum things we can actually access at any moment, right? And there's so many realms to learn and play and test out waters and see what you like and what you don't like now. And I'd love for you to share how people can work with you, right? Like, I'm sure you've attracted many beings who are going to listen to this, but how do people work with you? What does that look like? How do you take on clients? Where can they find you? All of that.
Yeah, so my website's currently being, thank you for that, by the way. My website is being currently revamped to christopherkyng.com. But right now, my website that is active and still up is called theastromedium.com. So you can go there and all of my services are listed. I offer astro mediumship, ascension and awakening coaching, psychedelic integration if you've gone to a retreat or you're microdosing. I do offer courses and classes and workshops at times. And if you're interested in a retreat, I offer cacao ceremonies virtually or in person. And those are 3 hours. I offer Blue Lotus day retreats. It's called Blue Lotus Spirit. That's here at the retreat center. It's an 8 hour experience and it's much deeper medicine experience. And then I offer private retreats, group retreats. You can book your own retreat here if you wanted to, or I could come to you. There's a lot of different ways that I work with people one-on-one or in groups. And all of that is on my website. You can follow me also on Instagram, TikTok at Chrystopher Kyng. And there's a lot of information there. And so whether it's microdosing retreats, wanting to know more about your astrology chart, mentorship, all of that is on my website. You also can just reach out. My assistant or myself will get back to you to kind of customize what you want. There are people who reach out and say, I need this, this, and that. And I'm like, I don't have that listed on my website because it would be so long if I had everything I did and offered and thought that would be a good thing to offer. It would be so long. So if you're being called to work with me in a specific sense and it's not listed on my website, that doesn't mean I don't offer it. Just reach out because there's a reason for that. And we can create the healing and the experience for you that you're looking for.
Yes. So all of his links to follow him and find him will be down below in the description. Make sure that you go find this beautiful soul because I just adore you and the medicine that you're bringing and just your
Thank
mission
you.
here is just so connected to my heart and my soul. And I'm just so grateful that you're on the show with us today. I'm sure we're going to have a round two because we could talk for hours about
I
all
would
of
love that.
we will. We'll have you back for sure. And any like closing commentary or thoughts or anything else you want to riff on before we kind of close up the circle?
Yes. I do. I am a medicine alchemist, and several times in this conversation, you've used the word medicine in regards to things that are not plant medicines. And I love that because in my world, drumming is medicine, my voice is medicine, um, touch is medicine. There are many different ways in which something can heal or move energy through you, and that can be considered medicine. I hold 13 different physical medicines in my profile. So there's many different places we can go, but this is where everyone really has to step into their own inner shaman and proclaim within them and reclaim that they are the medicine. We are the medicine.
Mm,
We're constantly searching for medicine and wanting something to fix us, but we hold medicine. Not just you and I, everyone does. Everyone has
yes.
a unique energy signature that can move energy. Some of us are more activated within it or intentional about it, but you are the medicine. I am the medicine. I'm the reason that I'm having this experience with ayahuasca, or I'm the reason this drumming journey took me so deeply. I'm the reason for that. Yes, thank the healer, have honor and respect for the animal that donated its skin for that drum and for the indigenous tribe that grew the wachuma or the ayahuasca or the cacao that you're working with now. Have honor and respect for the thousands of years of wisdom and knowledge and lineage that has been passed down. But don't sacrifice your own sovereignty and your own power in that process because I my name Chrystopher Kyng actually came from the understanding and a download I had during an activation where I realized one of my healer archetypes was a king. There are many weird things happening in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Kings can be healers, queens can be healers, and part of our healing magic is helping you step into your own royalty. That is medicine too. But I cannot do that unless you believe that your medicine within you is activated. So, understanding your own unique medicine and gifts is the first step before you can even enter our sphere. We will activate that. We will catalyze many experiences within you that you are ready for and have asked for on a soul level. Not, there is no bolt of lightning that's going to come and wake you up out of this sleep that you're in. You have to want it. And if you don't want it right now, it's not time. There are times I don't want it. There are times I just want to be left alone. But I don't ever forget that I can heal myself and that I am medicine.
Mm, such a potent little ending here. Thank you so much, babe. I am so grateful for you and thank you for being here with
Grateful for
us.
you as well.
Oh, we are the medicine. I say that all the time too. We are the medicine. We have all of these modalities and tools and conscious beings and catalysts and all of this amazing, incredible energy and things that we can reach for the expansion and for the help and the catalyst. But ultimately, yes, you are the medicine and you can do this, and you can do it quicker and with more ease and grace with a container of tribe and with soul family and with things who can
Absolutely.
hold you and witness you, because we can go far solo, but like, let's be real, right? We go so much further with each other.
Yes. It was always meant to be together.
Yes. And that's what we're coming back into. We are, like we're full circle on the conversation. We're coming back into that community and that tribe and that village. And we're building the villages and the tribes and the people to help, literally to help reactivate why we're actually supposed to be and what we're supposed to be doing on this planet. So we're getting there. We're building it. It's coming.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, just so much good conversation. So we will definitely have you back. For those of you who are new to the Brittany Renee experience, thank you so much for being here. We're so grateful for you. Thank you for sharing this time and space with us and receiving our medicine and bringing your energy into this space. Please drop any comments, how you liked the show, any questions that you got as well down in the comment box. And I'll make sure that Chris receives those and we'll get back to you on anything. And then also follow him on all of his socials, check out his website, all of his amazing retreats coming up. Him and I are also in the works at some point to do some magic together. So you guys will be seeing that. And please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Pass this along to anyone who really comes up into your consciousness that you're like, this person needs to hear this. This conversation will expand them. It will help share just this love and this magnetism that we're here to expand into and share together. So I love you guys all so much. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next week.